So it is September, and I was sent a video link about Jesus coming back, and people are getting visions about this particular one. Was a young man. He had a dream or vision about September, and the clock was shown to him, but it wasn't explained. And the young man was quite emotional, even though he didn't know what it meant. He was assuming, I think he was assuming, that Jesus might be coming this September. We've had many, this seems to happen every September. You know, every time a September comes around the fall feasts, people get all stirred up about the rapture and Jesus is coming. And I'm going on record to say that September will come and go and Jesus will not show up. How can I be so certain about it? Because people make the mistake of trying to understand Scripture exoterically instead of esoterically. These are not literal events we're waiting for. Jesus is not returning as the man that, if you had been there, as you had seen him leave. Scriptures insinuate things like that, but it doesn't make sense. The way Christ returns is through consciousness. And that is, when you look around in the world right now, people are being transformed by the Christ consciousness, by realizing the Christ within themselves as themselves. That is what the scripture that says, Christ, the hope of glory, that's what that refers to, the hope. It was a hope then, but now it's a reality. And Christ is returning. The self-realization of our divine self is returning to humanity. That is the rapturing event. That's the rapture, or the return of Jesus, as some people call it. There will not be a physical Jesus returning, but the Christ consciousness that he had, that he taught and talked about, is returning in full force. Humanity is waking up to the divine origin and divine soul. And I've watched the algorithm, of course, feeds other videos. Once you watch one of them, then you get a whole slew of them. I watched another one of a lady that had a vision, and of course she experienced the horror of being left behind, of seeing Jesus appear in the clouds. And then there was a flash of light and a blink, and he disappeared, and she was still on earth. What a traumatic and psychologically abusive way of living. And I left a comment under the video explaining that I believe that her vision was subconsciously generated from a lifelong fear that she's been holding on of being left behind. that came about with the series of the movie and all that prophetic information that's been generated over the years. And there's always that fear and the concern that you will be left behind when the rapture happens. And I just said to the lady, I just mentioned, what kind of a God or Jesus is this that inflicts such psychological soul trauma on people? To please reconsider your belief system. And then I just wished her peace and liberation from all fear. You should never have to fear God in that way. If you cannot trust the love of God and entertain the idea that you would be left behind to languish in the terror of tribulation, I have no respect for such a God. In fact, I defy such a Jesus and God. Rightly so, because it's insane. And I don't stay silent for this type of spiritual abuse anymore. People are suffering psychologically over this nonsense. Oh, I can't wait for the awakening to broad sweep the world, and especially the Christians. It's so sad to witness. Let there be light. Let there be consciousness, that you might understand and get understanding.